It don't matter what I try, I just can't win and I don't know why. There's a fork in every road, I pick the wrong one and then I go. American loser, yes I am, disenfranchised from everything. Well, I fall up and I fall down, an American loser the day I was born.
Welcome back to another episode of American Loser. It is the podcast that puts the spotlight firmly on second place. We're here. Where else could we be, LP?
No other place.
A shared universe
There ain't
podcast
no place
studio
like this place. So.
in Eatontown, New Jersey.
There's
Now,
no place like home.
It's the truth. You know what it is? If we were to try, anytime I've tried to do the show outside the studio, it just never works. Okay, or it works, it just doesn't work as well, I should say. So, if you're a regular listener, here's what we do on the show: we take a weird, obscure story from American history, we shine a little light on it, and if we can, we try to determine if there is in fact a loser in the story. Today we got a pretty good one. This one's straightforward.
Yeah, I don't think it's not going to be open for debate.
No. So real quick,
Oh, it's a very clear cut.
Yeah.
You're a freaking loser.
Right. He's
I think you're gonna like it. 'Cause
charter member of Loserdom.
Yeah, he might be the biggest, one of the biggest losers we've ever covered. So, real quick, we have to just acknowledge who else is in the room, though. My dilf of a dad, Larry Burke, is here.
Hey.
All right, I'm your host, KP Burke. I'm a stand-up comic in New Jersey, a big history fan, thanks to the man sitting across from me, and also a guy we've brought into the family on this thing, man. We love you, buddy. The Big Kahuna, the best soundcast
Hey.
producer in New
There he
Jersey.
is.
Hey.
So-
I love that I'm considered family at this point. Like, your
you
family loves me.
Oh,
It's
absolutely.
awesome.
Absolutely.
You get asked about at events and stuff. It's pretty cool.
You know, the first event that I'm showing up with, I'm going to show up in like a Kahuna outfit. Like, it's going to be
there
amazing.
you go.
Well, at first we used to use Kahuna as your nickname to keep you safe for your identity protected. You know, we are to share.
Now I
universe.
could
There's-
care less.
Yeah, now it's especially if this thing starts making money someday. But we got to hop right in, man, because we got a hot one here. Yankees are in the playoffs. Potential Game 3. They can clinch the division series tonight. The Giants are going to be playing on a short week here, so we couldn't record on Thursday. We want this podcast to come out tomorrow, so I want to get this to you guys as soon as possible here. Without further ado, Kahuna, we're not a political show.
No,
We don't talk politics here.
never.
But there is something that's in the news right now, politics-wise. Have you heard of the word impeachment?
It's come across my desk a few times.
Yeah, impeachment. It pops in all the time. It seems like ever since President Clinton got impeached, he was actually formally impeached, that people have this weird misunderstanding of it. So there's the impeachment process, and there's the actual removal from office, and all these other stuff. And they have charges brought against you. There's a whole lot of bad info on both sides of the aisle here.
I
Fun
don't know
fact
if it's
about
bad info, but misunderstanding of it.
Yeah.
Fun fact about impeachment, that was also a thought you had the first time you made me speak on this damn show. Because then you were like, damn it, he just won't shut up now.
Nah, dude, it's that fateful day. Well, we got a good one here for you today. A lot of people don't know this. We put up a trivia question on the American Loser podcast page and my Instagram page asking last week how many presidents were assassinated. A lot of people got it wrong.
How many presidents were assassinated while in office?
Exactly. So now what we're going to be doing here is we're actually going to talk about everybody, for the most part, knows that Clinton was actually impeached. He was not removed from office. There was no, there's no criminal charge, all that other stuff. But the first president in the history of the United States of America to have impeachment proceedings take place against him and actually technically be formally impeached was who, LP?
Our own Andrew Johnson.
The 17th president of the United States. What do you know about him off the top of your head, Combs?
Nothing,
Oh,
to
buddy.
be completely honest with you.
In my head,
Andrew Johnson?
correct.
Yeah, no.
He's
Not Lyndon Baines.
not Andrew Jackson.
Right.
Not Nixon.
Nope. He is routinely ranked as one of the we'll be polite. We'll call him one of the least successful presidents.
Yeah.
I think that's a nice way
Yeah.
to say it. But his story's wild, man. Want to guess who he came into office after, Kahuna?
Okay.
You want to take a guess?
Who's after him?
No.
So who did he come into office following?
Oh, I don't want to guess this, but I'm only going to guess it because the name was dropped earlier. Was it Lincoln?
Hell yeah, it was, buddy.
Okay, look at that.
All right.
Big Kahuna got something right today.
Score. Point scores.
Well, without further ado, we got to dive
Let this
into
be known
one.
that this is my new favorite episode.
Because you got the one right.
Because I got the one thing.
Dude, your jaw is gonna hit the floor on a couple of these moments here. Because
I got my popcorn ready. We're good.
I thought in my head, dude, I really thought I sat there when I was reading this. I was like, we're really just gonna focus on the impeachment of Andrew Johnson. But to do that, does a what do you want to call it, an injustice to the rest of his life? I mean, this guy's interesting.
Yeah.
So here we are. As the Civil War is drawing to a close, a gunshot rings out in Ford's Theater and changes the course of history forever. You know, back in the 1800s, that's when actors actually, got out there and did something about the world they were complaining about, you know? Nowadays, John Wilkes Booth would just make a speech at the Emmys until the friggin', the band has to play him off, you know?
You think so?
That's Well, President Abraham Lincoln would soon be dead, and the new head of the executive branch of the United States was a tailor's apprentice who was born in a shack in Raleigh, North Carolina. So, born December 29th. I mean, that's tough. You don't get as many Christmas
Yeah, well, you had
gifts.
Lincoln, who was born in a log cabin, followed by Andrew Johnson, who was born in a two-room shack in North Carolina. So.
And they all both would reside in the White House. So finally, a win for government housing.
Right. There you
Moving
go.
on up.
That's right.
So, like I said, born December 29th, just ruins everybody's holidays, 1808 in Raleigh, North Carolina. North Carolina, fun state, man. I get a kick out of it the couple of times I've been down there. Andrew Johnson was born to a poor family, like you said, Dad. Neither of his parents were literate, and Johnson was born in a two-bedroom shack. How many bedrooms was Poplar Street in Dumont growing up?
Oh,
for
we
you?
had three, baby.
3?
3 bedrooms and a bath.
So we'll call them humble beginnings. Is that fair to say for old Andy Johnson?
Yep.
Well, his humble beginnings, they wound up playing this huge role in his later life. He never attends school, and he wouldn't learn to read until much later in life. Here's how you know his parents had it rough, Cahoons, all right? His parents both worked as tavern servants, although his father had worked his way up to becoming the town constable until his death.
Was it like a sheriff type?
Yeah, like
Right.
a sheriff. More. In my mind, it's almost like, because it is North Carolina, so I pictured Andy from Mayberry.
Andy and Mayberry. Yeah.
But here's what's wild. This is where he turns more Barney Fife. His father dies when Andy Johnson is 3 years old.
Okay.
Now, the way he dies is he died after rescuing 3 guys who were drowning in a river. And he was ringing the town bell, I guess, and had a heart attack and died. So,
Wait, he was ringing the bell?
yep,
and
he was ringing the town bell and died of a presumed heart attack after literally just saving 3 guys from drowning in a river.
Well,
So-
the town bell is kind of like the fire signal that we might have today, that you're letting all the neighbors know far and wide to come and help and whatever. But apparently, a little too much excitement. That after saving 3
I
guys from
saved some
drowning.
lives.
Yeah. Except my own.
That's the problem. He goes, I saved 3 guys that drowned in the river, but no one's ever going to know about it because I didn't live to tell my own tale. So, sad shit here, man. Now, he is 3 years old when we said that. Now, his mother becomes the sole breadwinner, if you will, and she winds up working in a job known as a washerwoman. All right? I don't know if you guys know much about what that's almost... in my head, it's kind of like a cleaning lady, but definitely a lower
No,
rung.
it's beyond that.
Well,
No, not beyond that. It's lower than that.
Well, it had a stigma to it too.
Right.
That she's now a woman, a widowed woman, and she is entering into various different men's houses every day, unaccompanied. So the rumors persist nonstop all the time. Now, there's already a rumor too that Andy Johnson doesn't look like his father. So they're already starting to sit there and say, well, maybe his mother, maybe she had some extracurricular activities.
Even before Andy's
extracurricular.
father died. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so
Right.
little Jon Snow action going on here for old Andy Johnson.
Yeah.
But it's a rough go of this here. So there are also rumors, like we were saying, that he could be a bastard child. Now, at age 10, Johnson gets apprenticed to a local tailor by the name of James Selby. Okay, LP, how old were you when you got your first job?
Well, it depends on what you want to call my first job, but
Well, when did Grammy sell you into
into indentured servitude.
when did you start swinging a hammer?
That didn't happen, but cutting lawns or working at whatever, delivering newspapers. So I guess I'm maybe 14.
Okay, what about you, Cahoons? When was your first job? Or, I'm sorry, when is your first job going to happen?
Wow. Okay. I would ask you the same question.
There you go.
Hey, man, I served our country as a washerwoman. So.
I was 16 or 15.
Okay, no, it's about the age, man. But now here's the pisser with getting sold into a tailor apprenticeship. This guy Selby essentially owns Johnson's life from ages 10, and he's not free to be on his own until age 21.
Right. That was the apprentice program and based on how nice the guy was, it was how well you're going to be fed and what kind of treatment whether you're going to get whipped for your mistakes or beaten for your mistakes or whatever. I mean, an apprenticeship is a tough program, no doubt.
Well, it is. Now I'm sitting there, I was bitching and moaning about doing 6 years in the Navy, because originally when I signed up, I didn't know how long I was going to be in for. I knew that they owned me for 6 years. I didn't, well, technically for 8, but they only used me for 6.
Right.
But it's 11 years, man. That's a rough go right there.
Yeah, and you're a 10-year-old.
Yeah, you're 10 years old.
Not a 20-something.
Yeah, exactly. I was playing video games within the last 90 days, I would say. This guy, no video games for him, and you got to learn to be a tailor. So, at first he didn't care much for this tailor trade, but he did show some skills, and he was pretty good at it. He excelled at learning basic math and very limited reading abilities. Okay, this is all self-taught for the most part. People sit down and talk to him. Now, here's something kind of cool. A tailor shop back in the day, Cahoons, was kind of like a barber shop. Guys go in there, they're getting fitted for a suit. People come in, there's a lot of talk, a lot of chit-chat. And since the guys were going to be in there for a long time, they were readers. They would come in and they would read books or short stories to the tailors while they were working. So that inspires our boy Andy Johnson. He gets super into public speaking, and he loves these kind of cool stories. He also isn't, now he's a voracious reader all of a sudden.
If somebody was reading, they were reading aloud to the rest of the.
Oh yeah, I mean, that had to be like Netflix,
right?
You know what I mean?
That's it. I mean, it's your turn to read and pass the one book that they might have.
The story starts sucking. I don't want to renew my membership this month. Stop coming in here.
Yeah, it'd be weird if the page said, "Are you still reading?"
Book of the Month Club.
So because of that, it sparks a very deep interest from Johnson, who develops these strong public speaking skills as a result of the exposure to this. So you don't have to go to school. You just have to get kids interested in something, That's like Charlie Curcio, who was a guest on the show a couple of weeks ago. Homeschooled kid, one of the smartest guys I ever met, But does he know how to shove a nerd in a locker? No, he does not. All right? Can't shove. When you're a homeschool kid, you can't beat up the nerds because it just means they're your cousins.
And it means you're beating on your little brother.
Oh, God.
So now, although he loved to talk about the issues of the day with the customers, Johnson was unhappy working for Selby. And at age 15, mind you, this is after 5 years.
5 years working for this guy. Yeah.
5 years.
And you got to par that off, too, that if mom is alone trying to be the sole breadwinner and taking in, washerwoman work and everything else, that she's probably shipping him off just to one less mouth to feed, and then now it's on to James Shelby to figure out how he's going to be provided.
I believe
room
it's
and
Selby.
board. Selby, I'm sorry, I said Shelby.
I know
I'm
that
thinking race
Peaky
car.
Blinders is back, so it's not the Shelbys, it's the Selbys. But at age 15, he and his brother run away. His younger brother got conscripted, if you will, into this kind of trade school thing, just like him in another apprentice program. And Selby responds. He goes, you know what? I understand. You guys get out there. You're kids, man. Go out there. Nope. He puts a bounty on their fucking heads.
Whoa.
Yep.
Whoops. I'm the first one to break my own F-bomb rule. We're trying, guys. We're really trying, okay? I want PBS to pick this show up.
And I was the one trying, man.
You did good. You did good.
I'm doing real good, okay?
Someday this is going to be turned into a TV show. It's going to air in between an episode of Fraggle Rock and Sesame Street.
Cartoons, yeah, right. Animated. Animated American Loser.
I'm going to curse so much that they're just going to have to censor me as a person. Like, I'm not even going to be able to show up like that episode of South Park.
The Shield.
That's beautiful. That's, well, what he winds up doing, he puts out a bounty on the heads, if you will. There's a cash reward for the return of his apprentices. So,
he's already invested 5 years in these kids.
Oh, yeah, I own you for 6 more.
Right.
That's the
You're
other weird
out
thing.
after not even halftime.
Yeah, it's not necessarily indentured servitude, but like you said in the car ride down, maybe just a hair above indentured servitude.
Right.
So it's a tough go around it for, but these guys, they disappear. They make it out to Carthage, North Carolina. But they kept fearing they were going to be arrested and that they would later, get returned down to Mr. Selby. Now, in order to escape from that, they actually make it on foot all the way down to South Carolina. Now, you and I have driven through the Carolinas, LP. Mm-hmm. That's a good couple hours.
Yeah, you're not zipping right through that one.
No, sir. So on foot, they make it down to South Carolina. He actually starts up a little tailor business of his own down there. Actually, no, I don't know if it was a business of his own. I think he was just working as a tailor.
Right, he finds work.
Yeah, and he falls in love with a local girl. All right, tends to happen down there. Carolina girls have a way of when they say y'all, there's just a thing that kind of melts kids from Jersey's hearts a little bit, you know?
How is there not a song about them yet?
That's
Got California girls.
You got California girls, but no Carolina girls.
Oh, no, there's you don't listen to much country music then. That's the problem. It's almost all.
But it can't be country because then it limits the potential.
It's true. I'm telling you, when I lived in Jacksonville, that's when I started to realize it is a whole other world down south, all right?
I wish they all could be
South Carolina girls.
Well, yeah, it's a soft spot here. He wants to try to marry this local girl. She is not into it. Okay, she rejects the marriage proposal, and then Johnson returns to Raleigh in an attempt to reach terms with Mr. Selby. He wants to buy out his contract and his brother's contract, if you will, and they're not able to come to an agreement. So Johnson now feels forced and compelled. He's got to get out of there. He's got to go somewhere where he can't be returned to Mr. Selby. So he moves out west. LP, you spent some time in a certain southern state, if you will. Maybe a king was from there recently.
A king?
A king, maybe, the king.
Oh. Down around Memphis way?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
eastern
king.
Tennessee. That's where he's going to wind up making it down there. He moves out to originally Alabama and then makes it over to Tennessee until arriving in Greenville, Tennessee, which he falls in love with immediately. Now, you ever been somewhere, LP, and you were just like, this is where I'm staying?
It's a nice, you ride through a town and you say, this is really nice. This is, for whatever reason, whatever it is that you might be looking for.
Yep. Mine is, unfortunately, Jacksonville Beach, Florida. I was like, this is it. I don't want to go anywhere else. Now, it probably had something to do with the girls in bikinis and, the waves coming through and then like 9 bars all lined up, one right next to each other.
Yeah.
Probably had something to do with it, but... Anyway, he's loving it down here in Tennessee. He sets up a tailor shop in front of his home and quickly finds success. There's no tailors out there for some reason, right?
Well, he's got a skill. I mean, he did spend, 5 or 6 years with Mr. Selby that he has acquired skills. So,
and he was proud of it, too. He would often,
prospects.
prospect. Well, he would brag that his stitches never broke.
Right.
So that was his whole thing, that he did good quality work. So that's a good tailor. You ever have a tailor-made suit, Cahoons?
I have not.
Oh, buddy, change your life. So, out in Dubai, when I was doing armed security out there, I'll make this one fast to hop right back in.
My name is Big Kahuna. I am a pimp. I need to get...
Buddy, we're going to find it. There's a guy, Little Phil, he's a deaf Filipino guy that comes out to the base out in Dubai, and he sits there and he tells you jokes the whole time, but he takes your measurements, and then you pick out patterns in the suit, and then within 2 to 3 weeks, your suits get delivered. So... Now, all of a sudden, I'm walking around. I'm blonde-haired, blue-eyed KP Burke walking around in a tailor-made suit out in the friggin' desert in the middle of Dubai smoking nice cigars and everything. There's a reason why all the people thought that we were rugby players. All right? I don't have a neck. That helps, too. All right? It has a little something to do with it.
Flintstones. Meet the Flintstones.
I have been called Barney Rubble before. That's the sad part. You know what it sucks, too? When I lose weight, I get called Gary Busey. There's no winning.
There's no in between.
There's no winning.
For you.
Nope. But
poor KP.
That's my problem. My cross to bear, if you will. But
what was our boy Andrew Johnson's cross that he had to bear?
Oh, we're getting there.
He's got a couple. He's got a couple. Now, there's a loser within a loser here too. We call loserception. Okay, so we're gonna get to that here in a second.
Dun dun.
But he sets up his tailor shop, and he's finding some success here. His abilities as a tailor make him enough money to own some land, and he dabbles a little bit in real estate here. And in 1827, at age 18, Johnson would marry his who would go on to be his lifelong partner, Eliza McCardle, who was 2 years younger than him.
So he's 18 and she's 16.
Yeah, so oddly,
which isn't uncommon for the time.
That's an age-appropriate marriage, not for nothing. This ain't Edgar Allan Poe marrying a girl who's
and
12.
And also his cousin.
Yeah,
but anyhow,
we won't speak of consent laws, nevermore.
Right.
Oh God.
So, Yeah, so they go on. They actually have 5 children, and Eliza actually continues to help her husband learn to read and write at a higher level. She supports him. She's quiet, though. All right, she's not out on the town. She's kind of a very quiet woman. In fact, later on in life, she almost doesn't even want to partake in some of his bigger exploits, if you will. I'll get to that in a second. But also, LP, jump in when you got something.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
So he's moved out west now. He's out here. Things are working out. Now, the man who married Andrew and Eliza, did you pick up on this, LP?
Yeah, that was a pretty cool little side note.
Why don't you tell us
about
that?
A twist.
Yeah, talk about a little tie-in here.
Well, Andrew and Eliza get married and the guy who performed the marriage ceremony, was Mordecai Lincoln, who happens to be a cousin of our own Abe Lincoln. So,
That's
actually,
awesome.
not a cousin. Yeah, not of Abe, but of Abe's father. So I mean, there's
still there. They're
there's a
breaking
family.
bread.
Yeah, they're kin.
Well,
they're kinfolk.
he becomes good friends with Mordecai Lincoln. Actually, that they wound up running for office together.
Yeah, my cousin was the president of the United States.
Not yet, but
Except his brains is all over that theater.
Oof. Yeah.
theater. Get it right.
Theater.
We should look into. I wonder if Mordecai Lincoln outlived Abe. That's worth looking into.
Let's see.
I'll Google that later. But as we were talking about here, pretty interesting stuff. Now, Johnson decides now it's time to make his foray into the political realm, which is going to become what he's known for. He is originally run as alderman by his friends. That's how dumb I am. When I first heard the term alderman, I thought that was a guy's last name. So I was Jewish fella.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
But yeah, it was interesting. So he's run as alderman by his friends, and his handy skills as an orator and his working class appeal, because he idolizes Andrew Jackson, the People's Democrat, if you will, quickly leads to him becoming the mayor of his beloved Greenville. That's not bad, man. You're trying to escape your life as a tailor.
You're a
and all of sudden-
runaway
yeah.
apprentice from North Carolina, and now they're making you a Politico in Greenville.
Well, now the hot topic of the day is clearly slavery. Okay, they're trying to figure out what to do with it. But now feelings are there's a tension. There's the morality side of it. Now there's the fear of, well, what are we going to do? This Nat Turner rebellion just happened. I think 55 people were killed.
Yeah, that was a sad situation. But the Nat Turner slave rebellion, actually, it was with the slaves. There was a number of different rebellions or uprisings, if you will, of the slave population. But that one was scary to the controlling white force that these people are taking up arms and coming back at us.
Yeah, it was wild stuff, and they didn't know quite what to do with everything here. So the issue is now you're combining fear with the morality issue and the tension over it, and the get off my lawn party type people. There's a lot of weird shit going on here, but slavery is the cause du jour, if you will. Slave states and abolition states are jockeying for power. New territories are being disputed constantly. Johnson, who did own slaves, all right. Now here's one of those caveats. Okay, yes, he was a slave owner, but he's also got a reputation for being very, very good to his slaves. Now, the first slave he bought was a girl named Dolly, age 16, who he was extremely kind to, Kahuna. Now, she was dark, very, very dark skinned. For some reason, her kids came out not so dark. All right, so now there's the potential that Andrew Johnson was fathering some children with
You
with
like
Dolly.
that dark? All right, good for him.
So, yeah, it's always a fun thing with that. Where actually there was something in the news not too long ago that Aaron Burr had African Americans found that they were descendant from him.
Also, there was just something you said that I thought was hilarious. I loved when you said, "Oh, he treats his slaves really well."
Yeah, really well.
He treats say it back. The slaves.
Oh yeah,
really
that's
well.
why I said before that. I said there is a caveat because it is one of those baffling things where you're just like, hey, is it wrong to own a person? Well, yeah, but I mean,
I treat them nice.
Yeah.
Almost as nice as my wife.
Yeah, that's where it gets even weirder.
Yeah.
But,
Oh, good God.
so now this part's interesting here. There's a lot of stuff going on. Johnson is proving himself to be a little bit of a maverick in Tennessee politics. He is known in the House of Representatives as, like I said, a maverick. The two parties at the time were the Whigs, who, LP, you and I kind of talked about the Whigs in earlier episodes.
Right.
But the Whigs were, I don't want to call them, they weren't the predecessors to the Republican Party, but there was a lot of Republican ideas.
The politics of the time are just completely all mixed up, and when you and a big dividing force between all these political parties is the issue of slavery. That, do you have the right to own people?
And should the states be allowed to govern themselves, which in a lot of ways just means should local government be in effect to do something, or do we want this big federal? So you're still coming back to the old clash of the Jeffersons versus it's the Federalists versus the Whigs, all this other shit. I mean, it's wild stuff. But I believe the beef back then was the Federalists versus the Democrats. I think that was it. And then there was it's a whole crazy mixed up story, but what winds up happening, I gotta get it out of your system, LP.
All right. At least I didn't do it directly.
No, I said there was like, if he does it into the microphone, I'm going to fight him on it.
Sorry.
He will hop over the table.
Sorry, fans.
Well, Johnson agreed with a lot of certain issues, like he didn't like the idea of the executive branch having too much power, which oddly comes into affect him in his later years. And he worships his political idol, Andrew Jackson, who is both a Democrat and a fellow Tennessean. That's that funny thing where you just move somewhere and then you decide that's who your personality.
Right.
Like if I wanted to say, well, I'm just a Florida boy. All right. I spent, what was I down there, 7 years? So I think like 6 or 7 years. But I can't pretend I'm from Florida. I'm a kid from Jersey, man. That's the bottom line.
Right. You're a transplant.
You're self-aware.
Yeah, I'm glad that sentence ended in plant. Due to his requirements in order to be a part of the big Democratic political machine down here, Johnson runs as a Democrat for Tennessee Senate, and he's actually forced to sell his tailor business. Now buys a larger house for his family. All right, so he's taken in the wife and her family too. He's got a big house. This guy's doing stuff. If you had to pick a kid who couldn't read and bet on him to win, this bet's paying off right now.
Right.
Okay?
As a 10-year-old, being put into an apprenticeship program just to maintain, your subsistence, if you will, and at least it's room and board.
I always wonder if Selby would take credit for that. He goes, "Oh, we knew it. The moment he walked into my tailor office as a 10-year-old boy, he said,
this kid,
Senator." Yeah. So, unfortunately, now he owns up to 8 slaves. Okay. While the political parties of the day are constantly evolving, like we talked about, Johnson found himself at home with the majority of the Democratic Party issues. He believed slavery to be a private property issue. So that's the whole thing. There's people, we always talk about this too, there's abolitionists who were racist, okay? And then there were people who were, proponents of slavery, wanted slavery kept around, who felt it was a private property, and then would try to. So there's really, it's just an ugly issue. So
you don't say.
Yeah, it gets tough, dude. Especially when we start talking about where this story winds up, because we started it with John Wilkes Booth killing Lincoln, and then the crux of the story takes place right in the immediate aftermath of that. So, moving the story along. He believed, like I said, slavery was going to be a private property issue, but he also firmly supports the working class and was very proud to help set up the sale of government-owned lands to those willing to settle it. So he's real big on – he's trying to be the people's champ, if you will, like Andy Jackson was. So the Democrats are engaged with heavy infighting. They are thought to have been fighting each other more aggressively than their own Whig counterparts. In 1844, James K. Polk – does that name sound familiar, Cahoons?
Wait, what was it again?
James K. Polk. He was the president during the U.S. war with Mexico.
Okay. Yep.
So
he was the big land grabber.
Oh yeah, and a leading Democrat, real big on manifest destiny. He is now elected president in 1844. Johnson had spoken highly of Polk and even campaigned for him privately. These two dudes hated each other. Not fans. In Polk's own, were you going to say something about that?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, he was outwardly a Polk supporter, but behind closed doors, he hated Polk. They didn't get along at all, but he was true to the party. He's still a Democrat. He was a party man.
Yeah, it's like when I'm talking to Mike and Ming, and then I'll be like, "Oh, dude, Kahuna's great, man." And they're like, "Yeah, Kahuna's great. He's really
That's right.
definitely a guy we want to keep around."
We'll talk
That
about
is
that.
literally my biggest fear. Like that
talk
was
later.
horrible to sit through.
Well, I'm also me too, where I have I'll get screwed up in my head that I'll have like some of my favorite comics, like guys that I think are my friends that I looked up to, and I'll sit there and be like, I haven't heard from them in a while. Do they hate me? Did they just tolerate me because I was in the room? Do they actually like? Was I funny, or did they just know you're supposed to say that?
Oh, it's the best when you have friends who know that you're a filmmaker and don't invite you to the movies. Yeah, I'm calling you out, Scotty. You never listen anyway.
He's talking about Scott Brennan, former guest on the show. But no, it continues to get wilder. Once you dabble in politics is like heroin. All right, you start off just snorting it. Before you know it, you're full on bore, just jamming the needle in. So, Johnson saw his power and the power of the Democrats at large under attack from outside as well as from within. The party started splitting between abolitionists and pro-slavery.
Again, the slave issue is divisive for a lot of different politicos.
And the thing I keep wanting to hammer home is we're looking at this in 2020 because we're looking at it in the rearview mirror. Slavery, bad.
Yeah.
Okay, not hard to sit there and say that now. But back then it was, well, I'm against slavery. All right, why?
Yeah,
there was follow-up questions back then.
Right, it wasn't a clear cut. Everybody knows that slavery's bad. This was like, well, no, there's very positive things about it back in that particular time. I mean, that was
no shit.
The entire economy is based on it.
It's
Listen,
specifically. In the
I know
South.
it's not your thought process. I just can't help but defend it every time. Arguing against it. I have to.
No, it's okay, guys. Kahuna, big proponent of slavery. He believes in it strongly.
Shut up.
That's right.
Very much so, actually.
Yeah.
I know a guy.
It's
Who can get you stuff?
Well, now here's the problem. The Whig Party, their power's kind of declining nationally, but they're still very strong over in Tennessee. And Johnson's political enemies, President Polk now among them, keep diminishing Johnson's influence and his. They actually reframe his district. Did you pick up on that, LP?
No, I didn't. I did not.
They redraw the map for the district he represents to make him that much less powerful.
You mean gerrymandering? No, that's something brand new, right?
Johnson's district?
Yeah, so they pretty much are tampering with his power because they realize that he's popular, but again, the Whigs are still popular over in eastern Tennessee where he's from, so there's a good chance that you can, if you don't like a guy, what do? You set him up so he can't win his re-election. So it's just, hey, man, I'm sorry, you can't come in today. You didn't win the office.
Yeah, I mean, even Tennessee is a weird state in that one end of the state is very pro-slavery, if you will, and the opposite end of the state, not so much. So there was a lot of division even within the state, but in and around Johnson's district, the Whigs were still strong. In other words, the pro-slavery aspect was still pretty strong.
Absolutely. Now, here's where the story takes another interesting turn. They felt that what was going to wind up happening was that they were going to be able to just kind of kick Johnson out. Remember we talk about Teddy Roosevelt all the time where they're like, oh, we're going to make him vice president so he can't affect anybody, and then, boom, he's the president. Well, similar thing happens here with old Andy Johnson. His enemies get him kind of kicked out. He laments out loud that he no longer has a career in politics. He's thinking, what am I going to do? I got to try to live off my real estate? Do I go back to working as a tailor? What am I going to do here? Well, as it turns out, his political career very far from over. He winds up being run for and winning the position of governor of the entire state of Tennessee. Yeah, decent consolation
Fail
prize.
up.
Yeah, but again,
That's a perfect term. Perfect term.
But looking at the governor of a state in 2020 eyes versus 1850 eyes, it's a little different. The governor really wasn't a very powerful position. You really couldn't enact any laws.
You could propose legislation in Tennessee specifically. They had different charters.
Right.
You could propose legislation, but you could not veto it. So it's
Right.
like, I got a great idea, guys. Why don't we? I was thinking everybody gets together and you don't want to do that? All right. Well, I'll just
sit here and
I'm just going to shove my own head up my ass, and I'll you guys give me a call when you want to do something. But
Right.
I mean to cut you off. Continue.
No, that was pretty much it. That you could make a suggestion to the governing body that hey, you guys ought to really enact a law to do such and such, but he had no really strong influence on making that happen unless he's got some political dirt on you, something, movers and shakers.
Well, now here's what the position lends itself to, which I thought was good. He can't veto anything, but he does get a lot of public speaking gigs as the governor. And what did we say was his strong suit, Cahoons?
Public speaking.
Hell yeah. So he's now at the bully pulpit, as it's called, making these great speeches, really revving up kind of this idea of Tennessee pride, all that other stuff. Keeps talking about his humble beginnings. Now he's risen now to be the governor of Tennessee, which is funny because he later resumes this position, but in a slightly different capacity.
Right.
We're about at the halfway mark of this guy's story here. Now, we're trying to calmly jam in as much info as we can because we are about to hit hyperspace, okay? We are in the Millennium Falcon. We're about to jump through an asteroid field. It gets wild. So Johnson parlays his time as governor into what he had hoped would become a presidential nomination. He does not get it, okay? Instead, he has to settle for a return to D.C., but this time as a senator.
So now he's a senator of Tennessee.
Yeah, so he was in the House of Representatives. Now he's a full-blown senator, okay? So now that he's back in Congress.
Now he's got a little more power than power than he did as just a governor of the state, which was pretty much a do-nothing position.
Let me ask you, father of mine.
Yes. Yes,
real
my
quickly,
son.
can you explain to the audience listening at home the difference between a representative and a senator?
Well, senator, we only have, it's going to be 2 senators for every state.
Correct.
And representative is determined by the population.
Correct. So New Jersey has 18,482 representatives.
And at this particular time, too, another contentious point is for the Southerners is the how do we count the slaves? That we might have X number of people in the white population, and we got Y number of people in the slave population, but there were only, I believe it was a 3/5. So for every 5 blacks, you only had that. It would only count as 3 on the population polls, which led into the number of representatives you would have in the House of Representatives.
Yes,
right.
Now, a funny comic. I know. Good. I once called him a good buddy. He's just a funny dude. He's a really good guy. We've been on shows together in the city and stuff. Josh Wesson is his name. Black dude, kind of a stoner dude. Just a funny ass guy. He has a great bit about that. He goes, "You guys know we used to count as 3/5 of a person." You need to bring that shit back because when I'm in line for the club, I'm not trying to pay full price. I'm paying you 3/5. So,
yeah, and all
that's gold.
All that goes back to the whole balance of power between the slaveholding states and the free states, and that whole balance of power. And then as you bring new states into the union, are they going to be slave states or are they going to be free states? That is going to certainly tip the balance of power. I mean, that's where this is all at, as to who's going to be able.
We don't
to
know where we're going to be here. Yeah. Right. It is. It's wild times here. Johnson hoped that he would be. By the way, Cahoons, you tell us what you got to do if we got to start hurrying anything up or whatever we got to do. I know you got other people coming in at 8.
Will do.
So, here's the interesting thing. So he gets back into D.C., this time as a senator. Johnson was hoping that he could be a compromise candidate, okay? His loyalty and his popularity in the South made him very palatable in order to get Southern votes. The issue of slavery is reaching this boiling point, like you just talked about, LP. Johnson himself owned slaves, felt that slavery was a private property issue, because, again, it's like, well, I get that it's a moral thing, but, I mean, why are you coming and taking my shit, you know? It's almost like if you were to look at it in there's no good comparison for it because just the morality of it is always going to be wrong. But if we made something illegal tomorrow and then went around, but you purchased it when it was legal, then they're trying to come and take it. So if we all of a sudden said podcasting's illegal and this place had to be shut down overnight, we're not going to go without a little bit of a fight. You want to know some answers.
You know, dang well you would still be doing American Loser.
We'll just have to go.
You've liked this concept for way too long.
Well, again,
we'll just have to go offshore beyond the 10-mile limit.
Pirate podcasting.
Pirate podcasting, yeah.
Again, Johnson hoped that he could be the compromise candidate. That was his goal here. But the country is intent on dividing. Johnson loves the South, but holds a deep loyalty to the United States. I did not know this about him until we did the research for the show. You want to talk about a goddamn patriot. Hoofa. This is where it gets, the hairs on your arms rise up a little bit. So he is deeply, deeply loyal to the United States. Now, the election of Lincoln, whose first vice president is, want to guess who his first vice president was, Cahoons?
I don't even want to guess, because I know I'm going to be wrong.
Hannibal Hamlin. You ever hear of him?
There was a great movie, Silence of the Lambs.
Hannibal, that's a different Hannibal.
Hannibal Lecter. Well, Hannibal Hamlin is, I believe, a senator from Maine.
Okay. Maine.
Yeah, I knew it was Maine. I just didn't know. I think it was a senator was his position. But he's actually Lincoln's unsung hero, that he was the first vice president. So that's the first ticket. It gets him elected. All right, so it's
So the presidential election of 1860, again, all of these political parties are all divided up. And you say Democrats. Well, there's Northern Democrats, there's Southern Democrats. Some of the Northern Democrats are abolitionists. They're not for slavery. They're for abolishing slavery. There's Southern Democrats that are that's my stuff. That's my private property. You can't be messing with that. So they're more pro-slavery.
Right. Now there's the 1% too.
And then even the Republican Party was initiated or started in the presidential election of 1860. So,
There's a new party coming to town.
A new party is in town, and they're calling themselves the Republicans. Now, there might be a lot of people that were formerly Whigs or Federalists or whatever political association you want to put to them, but I think that's one of the big reasons why Lincoln was able to pull it off as far as getting elected, is because everybody else was so splintered that they couldn't gather a unifying force around any other candidate.
When they're fighting from within, that's when other people wind up coming in here. There was this past election. A lot of people didn't see the results coming that way, but there was a fracture within the Democratic Party at the time. So this happens a lot, too. That's why Woodrow Wilson became president, because the Republicans were fighting too much. But that being said, you have to get to this one part of the story here. So the election of Lincoln proves to be the spark that starts the fire of secession. Johnson warned his constituents, all right, that leaving the Union is not the answer. They're saying, well, we're out of here. We're going to start our own country now. He speaks publicly at length against seceding from the Union. A lot of people in Tennessee are not going to agree with this, but I thought this was a great line. I will not give up this government. No, I intend to stand by it, and I invite every man who is a patriot to rally around the altar of our common country and swear by our God and all that is sacred and holy that the Constitution shall be saved and the Union preserved. He likes the American flag and he likes the Constitution, Dad. Is that going to come back to the tail end of the story here?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And
I mean, his feelings was, all right, if you don't agree with what's going on, then change it. But don't split and, just take your ball and go home kind of a thing and start your own country. You have to make those changes or make those corrections as you see it within the existing form of government, within the Constitution and stay within the United States.
Now, this is important, too. He even personally meets with a certain Mississippi senator, a guy by the name of Jefferson Davis. You remember him, Cahoons?
Yes, I do.
You weren't with us on that episode.
Jefferson Davis, though?
Yeah, Jefferson Davis. He would go on to become the president of the Confederacy.
Yeah.
That was a Mike Zapcic episode, I think. You edited it for us, I believe. But he was a former loser on this one.
He was also the boss of Hazard County.
That's
Thanks for keeping it real, Jones.
I do love his. I do maintain that if the three of us were on some form of Family Feud or Jeopardy for just useless information, we would be unstoppable.
We'd be killers.
So.
Yeah, now when you say Mississippi senator, we're still within the United States
Correct.
of America. The Confederacy has not yet formed. So
Correct.
Mr. Jefferson Davis is a Mississippi senator, and we now have Mr. Andrew Johnson, a Tennessee senator, pleading with him to stay within the Union.
Now, why does he want him to stay within the Union? Did you pick up on that?
I think they would be able to the block. They would
checks and balances,
checks
baby.
and balances, right? So I mean, you would still have a voting block that's going to be pro-slavery within.
And you could defeat
within
Lincoln,
the United States,
so that
right.
this comes into that juggling of power with executive orders and all that other stuff. So
Right, we might have lost the presidential election, but we still might be able to control the Senate, or we still
Exactly.
might be able to control the House of Representatives.
Gridlock, baby, gridlock. So he warns him. He goes, "Well, don't do this. We got a new president, but that doesn't mean we have a new country." Johnson, his advice was not taken, and in 1861, at the outbreak of the Civil War, Johnson, this is where he really makes a name for himself, becomes the only, and The Rock said, only senator from a seceding state to remain loyal to the United States. So
Really?
yeah, that's how you get that's a resume builder right there, you know what I mean? So this causes considerable strife for Johnson and his family, as Tennessee is now deep in the belly of this newly formed Confederacy. Eastern Tennessee, where Johnson resided and was still quite popular, was now kind of reluctantly a part of the Confederacy. Because back then it was weird. If you were we talk about city-states a lot, right? It's almost like Sparta and Athens and all that other stuff. Like, you don't think of yourselves as all Greek. You think of yourself as a Spartan or an Athenian.
Right.
These guys are from Tennessee.
Now, is this one of those things that we look back on and we don't debate regardless? Like, oh, that dude was a patriot. Like, it's one of those things. Like,
There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
Like, even though like later on, you understand why he's on this show.
Yeah.
Okay.
We will pull the curtain back.
Yeah, he is. He's a wild guy, man, but he definitely is 2 feet firmly entrenched in the idea that America we got something going here. All right, so he's great that way.
He must have loved Team America.
It was that's a great way to make everyone in their brain curse without actually cursing. So solid play on that, guys. Now, Johnson's decision to remain loyal immediately catches the attention of newly elected President Lincoln, who, after speaking with Johnson at length, makes Johnson governor of Tennessee yet again, this time military governor.
Yeah, military governor. I mean, again, now the Civil War now breaks out, and there's fighting back and forth. Tennessee is a battleground. I think every county within Tennessee had a battle of one size or another within Tennessee, back and forth. So, I mean, you talk about
these are Southern
the war,
boys. They're good at fighting.
It's brother against brother kind of a thing. Tennessee definitely saw their share of the action, if you will, back and forth. Once the Federals, once the Union Army was able to bring Tennessee back under Union control, because it wasn't initially, then Lincoln appoints Johnson as the military governor of Tennessee.
Just wild stuff, man. Now, this move puts him into a weird spot. He has to try to get his family out of enemy territory now. So what was home yesterday is enemy territory today.
Right.
Wild times here for him. But he actually is able to defend immediately, by the way, as soon as he gets made the military governor, Confederate troops raid his home, confiscate his lands, and the slaves, they take away his slaves, and they turned his house into a military hospital. Johnson would defend Nashville admirably, as it was reported, to the best of his abilities. He would demand loyalty oaths from public officials and banned all newspapers with Confederate leanings. Johnson's efforts, however, are constantly thwarted via raids by Confederate General Nathan Bedford Forrest. Does that name ring a bell to you, Cahoons?
Nathan Bedford Forrest.
Yeah, so this guy, this guy from Tennessee, who's the military governor from the Union, standing in opposition to the Confederacy, is now being harassed nonstop by a Confederate general that's going to go on to create the Ku Klux Klan. Yeah, Nathan Bedford Forrest. Yeah.
Oh, Nathan Bedford Forrest.
Yeah, he ain't a good guy. It's a weird thing. We were talking about it too with Cousin Aaron and stuff. There's a lot of Confederates that are actually admirable people. There definitely was like, well, here's our cause, and this is what we're going for, and I can't stand against Virginia. Robert E. Lee stuff.
Right.
Stonewall Jackson, pretty great guy. But then there's Nathan Bedford Forrest. We were just like, Jesus Christ! Oh my God, give me a break here. Yeah, that guy's right at Hitler.
But again, you're saying that as a Jersey boy. You go down to Tennessee, and some of the southern brethren might have a little different take on him. But I'm not defending anybody here, but
totally.
I'm just saying, it's where you're from.
Hilarious for Kahuna's segment at the end here. He's already got the casting couch finished up. This is fantastic. I can't wait to throw to you for that in a minute or two, buddy. And again, talk to me here. It's a Monday night. It's chaos. So if you have other people here, if they need to start in the other studio.
No one's knocked on the door yet. You're good.
Okay. Well, I don't know if anyone's texting you, buddy.
No one's texting.
Try to be good to you.
I am not popular besides this show.
That's you are popular. That's the problem. So weird side note here. Johnson is a divisive figure on the slavery issue. He often did the right thing, but always begrudgingly. When Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, Johnson asked that Tennessee be excluded from it. He later caved in and decided that abolition was the only way to preserve the Union. So it was kind of like, we got to get rid of the slavery thing. Ain't going to work. All right. So begrudgingly, he goes, I guess we'll get rid of slavery.
He's like, well, that's a good idea, but not for Tennessee, right? Because so I can still keep my slaves.
Also he needed in order to, for later political ambitions too. So, but eventually, as the nation would go, Johnson would go in suit. This is an American dude here, man. So. Johnson's leadership under duress made him a desirable candidate for the position of vice president during Lincoln's upcoming reelection. Lincoln needed the support of the Southern Democrats, also known as the War Democrats, okay? Lincoln had several candidates in mind. Johnson was among them. Here's my favorite tie-in, all right? I'm going to go nuts here for a second. So, Now, I'm going to real quickly. I just want to cover the real loser in this story because Hannibal Hamlin is the real loser in this story. Mm-hmm. All right, he's well liked and he did his duties as VP quite well, but the need for a Southerner on the ticket to try to preserve the idea that, well, you can't really leave because you're still, there's the vice president is from the South, so you can't. There's no other country. There's still elected officials working for the U.S. government in the South.
Yeah. Now, to take it back too, in the election of 1860, where it was Lincoln and Hamlin on the same ticket, they won, but it was because there was so many other people in the field that they didn't win by the landslide. Mr. Lincoln is not like Mr. Popularity kind of a thing.
Not at all.
And now you had all these southern states actually seceding from the Union and forming their own country. We're in the midst of a civil war. Things are not going real well with the Union in the beginning of the war, and with the second presidential election, the election of 1864, the first couple of years of the war were not going well for the Union, and Lincoln really needed a couple of victories because people were tired. I mean, when your sons and fathers and cousins and brothers and everybody else are being killed and maimed, and you're in the midst of this bloody civil war. Hamlin was from Maine. Lincoln is a Northerner, so that they didn't want the election of 1864 to appear that this is just a rehash of the North versus the South.
Well, what are they calling it, too? They're calling it at the time, depending on where you go, it's not the Civil War, the War of Northern Aggression.
War of Northern Aggression, that these Northerners are telling these Southern states, or bullying these Southern states as to what they can do with their property, with their slaves.
So
as
poor old Hannibal Hamlin is getting kicked to the curb. He's getting kicked to the curb here in favor of a new guy that's going to help promote a unity ticket. So this is my favorite weird tie-in we've done so far. Lincoln had several candidates in mind. Johnson was among them. It wasn't until 1864, though, when Lincoln dispatched one of his most trusted men down to Nashville on a fact-finding mission. Now, you've been to Nashville, Dad. It's a drinking town.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So who are you going to send down to Nashville to see how things are going down there?
You need a guy that can handle his partying.
Yep. Ready for it, Kahuna?
Ready.
Devil Dan Sickles.
Get the hell out of here.
Right.
Nah, I'm going to use it just because it's just so good. Get the fuck out of here. Are you serious?
So Lincoln sends Dan Sickles, probably hopping down on one leg, to go...
No, not yet.
Not yet?
No.
I thought
What
this
year?
was 64. 64. Gettysburg was 63.
Right. Yep.
July 1st,
Right.
2nd, and
You're
3rd.
Right. My bad. Yep.
Oh, man, I can't wait to show you this, man. Freaking Andrew gets down there. He's like, yo, want to see my leg in a jar?
So Devil Dan makes his appearance down there, and he denies it. He goes, I'm just here hanging out. Just want to see what's going on. But they say that had a direct result on Johnson getting the position as vice president.
Yeah, that's it, because Dan Sickles lost his leg in July of 63, and now this is the election of 64, so he's not serving in the Army, but he's off on a fact-finding mission for the president. That's unbelievable.
Pretty wild stuff. Now, Johnson was nominated as the VP, and they hastily win the re-election for Lincoln over George B. McClellan, who was running, former governor of New Jersey, by the way.
Yeah, it's our Jersey tie-in.
That is our Jersey tie-in. Another weird fact,
episode.
New Jersey never voted for Lincoln. Lincoln never won New Jersey in either of his presidential elections. So instead of running on a Republican ticket, the two actually run on a National Unity Party platform instead.
Johnson and Lincoln.
Yes.
They're not Republicans. They're the National
They're Americans.
Union. They're the National Union Party because they didn't want this to go to a Republican-Democrat big vote-off, if you will, or an election. So they once again they form really another party, and then the Republicans realized that by splitting the Republican Party again over this whole issue of who their presidential election, they form another political party, the National Union Party.
Well, you're right on that one, too, because what winds up happening is that they do win handily, like we said. And there's a very famous political cartoon that actually shows Lincoln as a rail splitter, which was his day job, and Johnson as a tailor. And so the two of them were using their skills to repair the nation. So that was kind of a cool image.
Stitch the nation and unify the nation again.
Kuhn has stepped out here, so we're going to figure out how much more time we have on this one. Johnson is known, like we said, for being a skilled public speaker, but one of his most infamous moments would come from This I thought was a good story here, so I'm even going to wait for the Cahoons to get settled back in. Take your time, buddy. I apologize. It's let me know what we need to do. If you need to take a pause here and then set up in the other studio to finish. You sure?
Yeah, they're gonna come in here.
Okay. Well, like we said, Johnson, great public speaker, but he winds up coming up to D.C.
Yeah, well, they won the election.
Yep, they
Johnson
won the election.
and Lincoln are back in office.
So he's got to get sworn in now, right? Decides he got a little too drunk at a dinner party the night before. And then the day he's about to be sworn in, he winds up taking from Hannibal Hamlin, all right, the guy whose job he just stole, takes from him a bottle of whiskey and makes 2 really stiff drinks. We're talking like 90% whiskey, maybe 10% bitters or something like that. And then pounds those 2 drinks and goes to make his it hits him right away, and he goes to make his speech to be sworn in, and he's like stumbling around and he's incoherent, he's going on and on and on, and he can't get anything out, man. So everybody knows he's drunk there. It's like that scene from The Sopranos when Michael shows up high at the funeral. He's trying to talk and everybody's like, this guy's on something.
Right.
So just picture being poor Hannibal Hamlin.
Well, it was really the vice president's duty to swear in the president, but being now the first vice president, Hamlin, from Lincoln's first term, is no longer going to be with him for the second term. He's supposed to swear in Johnson. But Johnson is pie-eyed. He's out. You said 2 drinks. My research said 3. That he threw down 3 glasses of whiskey right before his swearing-in ceremony and his inaugural speech.
Yeah, he was a little toasted, and Lincoln's looking on like, oh boy, kind of like shakes his head and then goes on to give his inauguration address, if you will. But again, picture not Harry Hamlin, Hannibal Hamlin, sitting there and saying like, you sure this is the guy, Lincoln? This is the guy that's better than me, deserves my job. All right. Hamlin had to swear in Johnson too, by the way. That's like having to make out with the guy who's dating your ex-girlfriend. So uncomfortable position there. But as we're moving on here, Lincoln stands by his VP. Johnson disappears from the public eye for a few weeks following the embarrassment. Lincoln stands by him, though, and he says, Andy made a bad slip that day, but I know Andy Johnson well, and Andy Johnson is no drunkard. So Lincoln covered him, man. Now, that being said, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wrap up for a second here, okay? And Cahoons, you tell me if we gotta readjust or whatever.
Okay.
Okay. So the Civil War was nearing its end. Lincoln had a tough task ahead of him, but Johnson seemed to be the right man for the job. Ulysses S. Grant, another future president, right now the head of the Army of the Potomac, had just captured Richmond, and Johnson's beloved Tennessee was now back in Union control. They were finally receiving federal aid from troops. So Lincoln and Johnson would meet face-to-face for the first time since Johnson's drunken debacle on April 14th, 1865. During their meeting, Johnson made sure Lincoln knew not to be too soft on the Confederates.
Yeah, that was if I'm just going to jump in here too, from their second inaugural to now April, Johnson and Lincoln never really had a whole lot of interaction. So as Lincoln is now preparing, because the end is in sight, the end of the war is in sight, that they're only weeks away from the surrender at Appomattox, and the rest of the Confederate armies were going to quickly surrender. But Johnson was never in on any kind of cabinet meetings with Lincoln or anything else, so he really didn't know his plans from that drunken.
He's brand new,
right? That drunken scene that he had at the inauguration, he was really out of the public's eye for a long while to let that whole fiasco die down a little bit. So he was never really in on what Lincoln's intentions were for the aftermath of the Civil War. So, but now we're up to finally Lincoln and Johnson's having a sit down, a face to face, and it was, what was the date, Kev?
The date that I have, because here's what we're going to do. I'm calling this one on the fly here. We're going to wrap this episode up in the next 30 seconds. And what we're going to do is we're going to do this as a two-parter, because there's so much for the Reconstruction era that we would not be doing it justice if we bum rush through this. So we're gonna wrap this up real quick. I'm gonna get us to a stopping point.
Okay.
We're gonna take a break for a second, figure out what we want to do. Maybe we record the second half of this later tonight. Maybe we do. We'll come back next week to finish it. But it's just very important here that
Well, it's a good stop point.
it is a great stop point. So the two of them meet face to face, Lincoln and Johnson. They meet face to face April 14th, 1865. During that meeting, he tells him, he goes, "You can't be too soft on these Confederates. They're traitors." All right. Later,
This is Johnson saying this to Lincoln.
Johnson saying that to Lincoln. And later that night, Lincoln has plans. Going to go see a show with the missus
Yeah, at Ford Theater.
at Ford's Theater. And on April 14th, 1865, John Wilkes Booth shoots and later kills the 16th President of the United States. So now the escaped Taylor, who grew up in a shack and couldn't read, and the only U.S. senator from a seceding state to stay in the Union, is now being sworn in as the 17th President of the United States. I'll put it to you guys this way. We're going to end the episode here. If you love the show, we love you. All right? Please follow us.
Simple enough.
Talk about the cliffhanger.
Follow us on American Loser Podcast on Instagram. Follow me at KP Burke Sucks on Instagram, Twitter, and KP Burke on Facebook. Come out and see me do stand-up, guys. It's a great time. We have an awesome time here always. We're going to wrap this one up. We're going to figure out what we're going to do here. But I refuse to rush through the second half of this guy's life because it's wild stuff. So tune in next week for the conclusion of the impeachment of President Andrew Johnson. That is American Loser, Part 1.
An American loser the day I was born. An American loser the day I was born. An American loser the day I was born.